As the internet has evolved from pets.com, MySpace, and singing cat videos, to deepfakes, companies fighting for your screen time, and a constant influx of dopamine inducing content, we have entered a new era of danger. And this video isn't going to focus on the dark web, the lack of secure data, or even the hatred that we see online today. Today, we're going to talk about something personal to you: your brain. Your brain is arguably the most important organ in your body. You can have the lungs of a 20-year-old at the age of 60, but if you can't remember when you last ate or the name of your child, life suddenly becomes much less important. Contrary to popular belief, the term brain rot is not a new one. In fact, it goes back as early as 1854 and Henry David Thoreau's Walden. Now, if you don't remember this piece of literature, or if you never read it, it's essentially Thoreau's account of living in the woods to get away from the city life and to reconnect with nature. Thoreau ventures into the wilderness to become self sufficient, living near Walden Pond. He criticizes the materialistic views of 19th century society and urges his readers to become one with nature and to reconnect with life's purposes beyond one's own desires. Now, while this was written in the 1800s, it parallels with today's society, so much so that he actually writes, "Why level downward to our dullest perception always, and praise that as common sense? The commonest sense is the sense of men asleep, which they express by snoring. While England endeavors to cure the potato rot, will not any endeavor to cure the brain rot, which prevails so much more widely and fatally." Now, while there is more to this quote, for time's sake, we'll leave it there. Thoreau is primarily speaking about the lack of variety and originality in society. He is not necessarily saying that society as a whole is having trouble memorizing things or being influenced by memes. Instead, he's arguing that conformity in society is leading to an overall lack of new perspectives, interpretations, and original ideas, which he terms as brain rot. Now, we see many of the same themes in today's world. Disney, for example, finds it easier to remake their classic movies rather than producing original content. Students are essentially being taught how to find proper interpretations rather than learning how to interpret themselves. And even music seems dull and unoriginal, and new products often don't solve problems, but they're created for decoration or stimulation. And the content that we're all consuming has the same problem. It's hard to find original content, meaning content that has not been regurgitated 1,000 times before. Now, some of the most popular content is called relatable content. It's not about teaching you how to budget or meal plan, but how annoying it is to put plastic wrap on dishes, or how it feels to stub a toe. And while we're on the subject of social media content, it's also important to focus on the first part of Thoreau's quote, that the most common sense we have is while we sleep, which is easily expressed by snoring. Now, I'm not sure that they had scientific research to back this up at the time, but studies today have shown that the best time for us to create original thoughts and to form new ideas is not when we're watching YouTube videos, despite what some of you might think. It's when we're sleeping. Multiple experiments have shown that short naps create boosts of creativity and they help you solve problems. Now, after allowing participants to take short naps, around 45 minutes, the participants showed significant increases in their creative abilities. This ability lasted a short time after they were awake, but it does show something important. Sleep is necessary. And multiple other studies have shown that the less sleep you get, the worse off your brain is going to be. Phones, TVs, tablets, and computers all affect our ability to get a good night's sleep. Even if you don't have devices in your room at night, the constant dopamine hits and polarizing political news throughout the day can cause anxiety and depression, making it much harder for you to sleep. So, Thoreau wasn't wrong, but his warning certainly did not take. So, let's define brain rot. Brain rot is defined as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially viewed as the result of consumption of online content considered to be trivial or unchallenging. Also, something characterized as likely to lead to such deterioration. Or, in plain English, someone getting dumber from watching too many talking animal videos. But I would argue that this is only a surface definition, and it does not get to the core root of the problem, which is the loss of one's ability to create original thoughts and to hold long term memories. Today, brain rot is associated with the short videos that engage your eyes but don't provide any educational value. The restocking, the subway trains, and the hydraulic press videos of the internet. And while these videos are definitely problematic, I would argue that they are only a fraction of the problem. When we talk about creativity, it's important to understand that being truly original is actually a huge challenge. Humans have written and sung, danced, and invented probably billions of things in our time as a species. But to be creative is not to be fully original. To be creative is simply to have original thoughts. For example, if you're reading a book for school and you're asked to give your thoughts about a specific paragraph or chapter, you should be able to give your personal thoughts with little or no hesitation. Now, if your thoughts are similar to that of others, that's okay. But if you simply cannot come up with any thoughts about a text without referring to Google or AI, then you have officially lost your creativity. And perhaps you're thinking to yourself, I have no need to be creative. I work in finance or I'm in customer service. But what you may not realize is that the part of your brain associated with creativity works hand in hand with the parts involved in problem solving and memory formation. Now, I don't want to get too technical in this video about brain structure, so I'll leave some more information in the description about how those parts work together. But essentially, if it's hard for you to be creative, it could signal underlying conditions with linkages between your hippocampus and other parts of your brain. And this could mean that you aren't using your brain or working it like the muscle that it is. But why is that important? Well, let's refer to Epicurus, an ancient philosopher who advocated that memories were the source of lifelong happiness. In the letter to Minucius, Epicurus discusses the practice of philosophy as a lifelong source of happiness for both young and old, arguing, young or old, it is necessary to love and practice wisdom so that in old age you can be youthful by taking joy in the good things you remember. And likewise, in youth, you can be mature by not fearing what will come. He stresses that the fond recollection of past experiences provides well-being in old age, linking memory directly to sustained happiness across your life. And we don't need scientific research to prove this. Time and time again, family members of the elderly express their true sadness over watching their parents and grandparents slowly forget who they are due to dementia or Alzheimer's. These people suffer for a prolonged period of time, living physically but lost mentally. And you might not think that just because you watch TikTok for an hour a day, that you'll be at a higher risk for these diseases. But I'm not arguing that dopamine-inducing videos are the source of these awful afflictions. Instead, it's the lack of learning, reading, studying, and using our brains on a daily basis that lead to these conditions. Meta-analysis show that people with low education have up to an 85% increased risk of Alzheimer's disease and a 45% increased risk of any dementia compared to those with higher education. Decades of research have shown that lifelong learning and exercise are two controllable factors that decrease your risk of these afflictions significantly. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care about your brain health because you're watching this video. And I believe that you can change your habits easily. I'm concerned with our children. If you haven't heard about the recent study that showed that those who used ChatGPT to write their essays showed a 45% decrease in brain activity, I suggest you go read it. While it's not peer-reviewed as of right now, the results are not surprising. What is surprising is that schools are increasingly allowing students to use AI in the classrooms. And while I understand the argument that they're going to use it anyway, I don't think that that's a reason to allow it. Now, if they are purely using it as a research tool and nothing else, maybe it won't be harmful. Just like if we allow young boys to only watch the soft stuff, maybe it won't have as many negative effects. Now, if the latter sounds ridiculous to you, then the former should as well. And I'm not going to say that AI doesn't serve a purpose in school. What I am saying is that we're playing a dangerous game. One where the consequences could be our children having less brain activity, losing the ability to form original thoughts and ideas, and even the ability to create meaningful relationships. All of these themes have been played out before, but the consequences have landed on adults because adults make their own decisions for better or worse. But children have very moldable brains. And as adults, we should be encouraging them to engage those tiny brains as much as possible. Not how to use ChatGPT to give you research ideas. And maybe I'm blowing things out of proportion here. But if the rise of social media for children and adults has already led to anxiety, depression, lack of social connection, and the inability to think creatively, and even the ability to have a truly functioning political society, imagine the consequences of adding the inability to teach our children to think for themselves and to form original thoughts. I'll leave you with this. The rise of the internet and AI isn't going to be the downfall of human existence, but it could realistically lead to a society in which we are all mesmerized by the shadows in Plato's cave and resistant to the light at the end of the tunnel. So, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you guys have anything else to add to this discussion, comments, concerns, or any other statistics, please be sure to leave them in the comments. And as always, I will see y'all next time.